people, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining. People, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more.
Today we're going to talk another bit about my Apple a Day, and we're going to actually pull a quote, but I have pre-pulled a quote, okay? The DJ that I listened to when I was a boy that I absolutely loved, named Woody Wyndham, used to do a thing, and he would say, call in right now for an instant request. And he would put people on the air, and they'd say, what do you want to hear? And the people would say, and he would play it. It was like a miracle. And he was asking them before he put them on the air. So it was not, he made it sound like it was magic. Instant request. Well, I'm not going to do an instant quote and pull it out of here because I really wanted to give it some thought and share with you. And I've actually got two pulled. One is for tomorrow. And the quote from today, and the idea is you reach inside, it says your apple a day on the back. Okay. And it's inside of this. And like I said, don't look for them. I don't make them anymore. The quote is from Nietzsche. The idea is you pull a quote for the day, and then that's your quote of the day, and you put it on your dash, your cubicle. And the quote is from Nietzsche. And the quote is, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And I realize it says he. Number one, I created this in the 1980s when he was used a lot more universally for he and she. And the other thing was I chose not to edit the quotes. I wanted them to be direct quotes. So Nietzsche said, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And I pulled that quote randomly, and I thought, that's a great quote. I mentioned to you that I went to Unity on the Bay this past weekend and heard Chris Jackson speak, and he's phenomenal. Look him up online, Chris Jackson. And he talked about values. Now, not in the sense of the way we tend to use the word value. We use the word value as a broad brush, oftentimes to say, I have family values, which means that I broad brush, meaning that I am typically a conservative Christian. You know what I mean? So that's often how the word value is used. The word value simply means what we give worth to. And one of the things that we don't like to get into is the things that we must value because they keep showing up in our lives. Now take a breath and take this in. When Chris said this, I was like, whoa. The other day I was talking about the fact that I struggle to be on time. And it's amazing to me that whether I get up at 6 a.m., 6:30, 5:30, or 7:42, I am typically 1 minute late jumping on these JumpStarts. And I've tried to figure, if I've got this variety of time, variety of things to do, how do I do that? And I discovered that what I have is a value of being late. And I had to sit down with that. Now, this is not a comfortable thing, but I had to ask myself why. And I'm going to the Nietzsche quote from a roundabout way. He who has a big enough why, is that it? He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. So I had to ask myself, why do I value being a minute or so late? And I got to thinking about people who struggle. Like I was very overweight. So I get to look at all of these things and not criticize other people for being that way, but try and understand why they are that way. For example, I used to smoke cigarettes. I did for decades. I grew up in the South. I was born in 1960. I quit when I was in my 20s. But I didn't smoke for decades then, obviously. I smoked for about 6 to 10 years. But I valued that. And if you think about it and you go back and look at it, there was a value to it. There was a relaxation. There was a fulfillment of a habit. I even liked the smell, even though now I absolutely cannot stand the smell of cigarettes. Can't stand it, even in a distance. But I valued that. So when we begin to look at things in our life and we begin to say, I must value this because it keeps showing up for ourselves. And then we get into that Nietzsche quote from that back angle and say, why do I value this? For example, being late, I know my friend Joe, I've told you, has a equally difficult time with being on time, but not because he's late. He's always early. And the earlier, the better. And even though Joe knows that I can be 15 minutes late, if I'm meeting you for dinner, 15 minutes late. Not ironically, but gladly, that is not a typical thing for me now. Typically, I'm a few minutes early, and I've worked on it because I figured out my why. But for Joe, he has to set an alarm so he won't leave too early to get there. And even though he knows I'm going to be late, he likes to be earlier and earlier and earlier and sit there. And it's not a I'm early thing and you're late. He's never that way. He just has a value. And Joe's why? I don't know. My why is I like to keep myself busy rather than moving at a slower pace, which is more comfortable. And I realized that's actually healthier to move at that slower, more comfortable pace. My ex-wife, Marty, used to say that I got a rush out of rushing. And now by moving at that slower pace, I no longer get to have that value of getting a rush out of rushing because I'm beginning to value more the opposite of that. I'm beginning to value more the cool and the calmness of knowing that I can only do one thing at a time. There's always more things to do. And it feels good to get to my commitments more comfortably and on time. So to take this quote in its most common way, the quote again is, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. This is from Nietzsche. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. We've talked about DBT and dialectical behavior therapy, which has been proven to work really, really well with people with suicide ideation and suicide attempts and cuttings and things like that. And the number one focus ultimately in DBT is to get people to live what they call a life worth living, because people who cut themselves, ideate suicide or attempt suicide literally feels life is not worth living. And what comes along is that why. How many times have you seen movies? It's a trope, really. How many times have you seen movies where you've got some, I don't know, my age, 62, and the person is kind of washed up, angry, et cetera, and then they inherit a puppy, or they inherit a child, they adopt a child, or they meet a kid on the street, or a woman at the gym. I'm thinking of $1 Million Baby with Clint Eastwood. And then all of a sudden they get a why. Why? So number one, I want to ask you, why do you value the things that are not serving you? And the other thing is, what's your big WHY? When you read this quote, the why is in all caps. What's your why? Why do you get up? Why do you do what you do? I get up every morning so that I can journal a bit to come up with ideas to share to you that you then turn around and spread to the world. Not bad. Not bad. I will tell you, there are many mornings when I have absolutely nothing planned. And I feel like, have you ever heard the term pumping a dry well? And there's absolutely nothing coming out. And yet somehow it always does. Somehow we always end up with a great conversation. And to me, that's a great why, to know that I'm plugged in enough to be able to do that. So what's your why? What is your why? What's your big why? Why? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you teach school? Why do you help your mother with this? Think about all the things that you do and ask yourself why. And make sure you've got a positive why. And if you've got a negative why, I have to, well then begin to develop a positive why. I have to do this because nobody's there to take care of my mother. But my mother is really terrible to me. Okay, well then develop a positive why. Why might you do it in a way that gives you joy and satisfaction? How might you do it? Find the why. It's there. Good to see you all. Let's check in again. And thank you again for clicking share. When you share this message, you share our positivity movement around the world. And if you haven't taken the complaint-free challenge yet, go to www.acomplaintfreeworld.org. You see it right there on the bracelet. Take the complaint-free challenge. Join more than 14 million people around the world who are transforming their lives through this. This is I would say, I was thinking about this. This is probably, I'm guessing, one of, if not the world's largest positivity movement. It's just amazing to me when I get my statements from my publisher and they're like, huge bestseller in Russia. Great to know. Didn't even know it was selling in Russia. Didn't even know it was published in Russia. So help us spread the message if you would. Mary says, Mary Perry, grateful to be home after a long day of administering COVID vaccines yesterday. That's right. I remember you sharing that with us, that you were doing that. Thank you for doing that. My good friend from high school, Pamela Jane O'Connor. I fear being bored, so I do, go, ho. I am exactly the same way, and I used to joke about Robert, I always have Duvall, in the movie The Apostle, one of my favorite movies, says that he got kicked out of grammar school because he was bad at recess. And I used to say I was the same way. And I realize now, not a good thing. That's distracting. I'm working more and more to sit by the pool on the weekends or just go out on my paddleboard and sit on it. Richie. Good morning from Kingston, Jamaica. What are you doing in Kingston this morning, Courtney? Usually in Mobay. I'm grateful for an early rise. My ego identifies me as being early, so I'm usually 30 minutes early. There you go. If I'm going to be late, I no longer feel like going. Wow. I also realize that it's an insecurity thing in me too, because if I'm late, I appear like I'm more important. When I used to sell insurance, they told us never be on time, always be 5 minutes late, never more than 5, never 6. But you want to be a little bit late because it makes the person feel like you're very, very busy and very, very important. I guess that's what I've adopted partly. Hola, says Jeanette. Good to see you, Jeanette. Feels like I haven't seen you check in a while. Greg, shared first one. You are the man. Thank you. Heather says, good morning. So grateful for rain. Me too. I got up this morning and it said on my you-know-what device that it was going to rain, and it has not, but that's okay. Linda says, shared. Debbie says, great message. Really makes me think. So why? Why do you value the things that are not good for you and you keep doing them? And then why do you come up with strong whys for the things you do want to do? That's what's important. For me, honestly, and I have said this over and over, and I'm going to keep saying it because I need to hear it. Yesterday, I had a boxing lesson and then I lifted weights. So I was literally working out for an hour and 45 minutes, an hour and a half, nonstop. I don't ever look forward to that. What I know, though, is if I skip one day, it becomes it's so much easier to skip the next day and the next day. And then I start waking up in the mornings in a funk, feeling out of shape, and more feeling depressed. So for me, exercise is a way of releasing those endorphins into my body to make me feel better. Got off on preaching there. Wow, deep thoughts today. Why? I don't know. Let's do it. Oh, by the way, I'll tell you what the quote is tomorrow. And don't you leave till I give you the song of the day. We're all going to play the same song of the day because that is fun. How many of you are listening to the songs of the day? I love that. Some of you keep reminding me. Oh, Buckminster Fuller. This will be our quote tomorrow. We were deliberately designed to learn only by trial and error. You uncover what is when you get rid of what isn't. I can't wait to talk about this. Do you know who Bucky Fuller was? Creator, I think it was the World Hunger Project, or one of the main movers in that. The song of the day, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, we're going to go old school. Joy to the World. Joy to the World by Three Dog Night. Everybody, as soon as we're done, we're all going to listen to Joy to the World. What a great way to start a Friday. Cynthia, we're going to go through our last few of the quotes here. And, oh, good. Cynthia says, I teach because I love to inspire and to be inspired. That's your why. The latter is the greatest payoff. You know what? I dig being on stage. I love the admiration I get. I'll be honest with you. I was a class clown. I performed. Pamela will tell you. Pamela Jane will tell you. I was a class clown. Dig me, just like George Carlin said. Now I get paid for it. And the most important thing I love is then when people email me and say, I tried to stop complaining. This improved, that improved. My life got better in these ways. Wow. Pamela says, just move back to the beach to slow down and appreciate the rhythm of the ocean. Yeah, that's really wonderful. On the bay, of course, we don't get the stuff going back and forth. Oh, Mary and Cynthia say, love the song of the day. Cool. We were in a play together. Was it Charlie's Aunt? Was that the play we were in together, Pamela Jane? I think so. And weren't you going just Pamela then? Yes, to Joy to the World. Or were you jumpstarting on Saturday? No, my dear friends, we are no longer doing weekends. Song of the day is Joy to the World. I thought so, Pamela. And yes to Charlie's Aunt. That was I can still remember the lines from my high school play. I so clearly remember you. Yes. I did and I do. And yes. Awesome. Song of the day is Joy to the World. We're going old school. Everybody listen to it. It'll be cool to know that we're all doing this at the same time. So nope, we're not going to do JumpStarts on the weekends. That's part of my not getting myself to work all the time that we were talking about, learning to relax, getting myself to relax. Everybody listen, make it a great day and ask yourself, if it's bad, why am I doing it? And if it's good, ask yourself, why am I doing it? Wait a minute. Kissing Beth Spigner? Pamela Jane, you and I are going to have this conversation off the air. Ms. Spigner, okay. Beth Spigner. Don't remember. Welcome to, I really should have shaved before I got on here this morning. Yep, there's the should word. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining me. And I look forward to being with you on Monday. Make it a great weekend. We're going to hit the Buckminster Fuller quote. And here we go. Alexa, play Joy to the World by Three Dog Night.
Here's Joy to the World by Three Dog Night on Amazon Music.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying.